A very good evening and welcome to the State of Scottish Football. It's Thursday evening. Sorry, yet again a problem with my bit of the side there. But Thursday evening, and it's us two this evening, the two heavyweights. Myself, Mr. Dave Swift, and to my right, Mr. Regan Stevenson. Regan, how are we?
I'm doing well, Dave. It's great to be back on again.
Absolutely. Now, as you can see, Gio van Bronckhorst has been announced as the new manager of Rangers Football Club, the 17th manager of Rangers Football Club since history. Although, if recent history tells us, maybe only the odd few, but we'll leave that to you as the viewers. But we'll discuss that. We're going to get on the questions straight away. And Michael Fell has gave me a 4-question head start here. Right, so first and foremost, yes, up. Right. What system does he prefer? And what system does he prefer to play? And will this be a big transition for the squad?
No, he prefers a 4-3-3, which is similar to what Rangers do when they played under Steven Gerrard. So I don't think it'll be a big transition for the squad. The only thing I would say to you, Dave, is it'll be interesting to see who he brings in his backroom team, because obviously Michael Beale was the guy that Rangers followed. So it'll be interesting to see who they bring in, because I don't think they'll be as good as Michael Beale. And I think even though Steven Gerrard was a big name, I think it's okay for me and you to say that Michael Beale was definitely a big hand in how Steven Gerrard done here in Scotland.
Next question, I don't need to ask it, but does anyone know his philosophy? His philosophy is attack minded. His philosophy is an admiration to go and score goals. And I'll probably look at this by saying he's probably got a more attacking impetus than Gerrard probably had.
Yeah, I would even say it's an upgrade on Steven Gerrard, personally, from the fact that he's won 3 titles in Holland. He won the league title with Feyenoord, and he's won 2 cups as well. So this is a guy that's got big experience, and he also has got that aura with the players as well, which I think is important. But from a Rangers point of view, I've seen people say Barry Ferguson, Neil McCann, Thompson as well. So it'd be interesting to see if he brings someone with a Rangers background in to help him.
He's probably a bigger profile than Gerrard, considering he's won multiple league titles, Champions Leagues, plus captain at a World Cup final side. I probably agree with that, but also I look at this by saying, on a management scale, he has a lot more managerial experience than Gerrard has.
Yeah, Dave, something I want to bring up that people might not know. He's from the same group as Ange Postecoglou, the City group with Pep Guardiola.
Is that in terms of agents?
Yeah, in terms of where they come from. So he's in the City group, which Ange Postecoglou was scouted as well. So, and Pep Guardiola, obviously, he's got a big high regard from as well. So I think it'll be interesting to see if he brings maybe in someone like Michael Moles, who was a former player. Um, I think it'll be interesting to see, because obviously Rangers will be expecting big things. I know it's a big jump from in terms of being managed in China, but it'll be interesting to see what he actually does with this Rangers squad. And do you think he'll bring players in January? Because from my perspective, I don't know if Rangers have got the money to bring any players in unless he lets some of the players go in January.
This is the thing. As much as Rangers will have a lot of financial burdens right now, I think it's important for Van Bronckhorst to realise that he's not going to get a massive cash kit at Rangers to go and spend.
No, I mean, I spoke about it on the show last week. They've got a £23 million um, £23 million that Rangers have lost in the past year. So it just shows you that they're probably going to need to sell players. And I don't understand why they're not. I mean, this is the business model of Scottish football. And I know people are saying, "Oh, why are people not leaving?" But you just need to look at Celtic for the past couple of years. They've got Edward, they've got Dembele, they've got Victor Wanyama, they've got Virgil van Dijk. I mean, I don't understand Rangers fans that say, "Oh, hopefully it stays." But surely they would want the players to go and get the club a bit of cash as well, David.
Absolutely. Now, the David Supporters Club is in the house. I regret to inform you that this is my last Thursday. This is my last Thursday involved with this show. Because as you've heard through Colin Watt last night, we are going through a transition period. Not exactly a Celtic transition period or Rangers transition period. We're going through the state of Scottish football transition period, Regan.
Yeah, I mean, me and you were the Thursday club, but it'll be interesting to see who I'm on with next week. So, yeah. Um, no, Dave, but you've been a top guy, and it's been great to be on with you. So, hopefully, we do many more together.
Absolutely. Back on to the Van Bronckhorst subject. He's a guy that will be a popular appointment among many Rangers fans, probably because of his culture and his way of thinking about the beautiful game.
Yeah, and also because he played with the club as well, so he knows what it means to play with Rangers or Celtic, and he's also scored against Celtic as well. So I think it'll be interesting to see what he does with his teams because it's all great playing for the club, but it's a different prospect if you're a manager. So yeah, I think he's going to bring a brand of football that's going to be very, very good for the Rangers fans. Definitely.
Yeah. I am waiting for clarification about a comments in here. Brian Gilmore, G-Man Defoe, and Colin Stewart will be in the dugout on Sunday, and it's probably to give Van Bronckhorst an opportunity to go and look at everything, look at the books, and but most importantly, it probably makes sure that Van Bronckhorst is under a level of pressure straight away, considering the magnitude of the game that there is coming up on Sunday.
Yeah, well, I don't. I didn't expect Van Bronckhorst to be in the dugout for the simple fact that if Rangers lose on Sunday, then he would be the man in charge, and it wouldn't look good on him. But I think it's important that they put Jermaine Defoe in there and a few of the guys because they've obviously been there with the squad under Gerrard. So it's about keeping that structure, and obviously the Rangers players know them very well. So I don't think it'll be a difficult transition from Steven Gerrard.
Absolutely. When I look at this, I say that it's a good appointment for Rangers, but and the one thing I'd look at by saying I don't think they've panicked at this decision either. He's been the front runner from the starter, but I don't think they've panicked at any given decision either.
Yeah, no, I think he has been the front runner. I think it was very interesting that um, no one else has been mentioned either, David. Because I spoke about on the show maybe that it's taken too long, and maybe I was wrong. Maybe he just was their right candidate from the start, and they didn't really look for anyone else. But I just found it strange that he was the only one mentioned within the mainstream media.
Absolutely. The one thing about social media is it can be a very toxic game, as we very much all know, Regan. But there seems to be a unitingness about Rangers fans for a sudden change after this appointment.
Yeah, I mean the comments that I've seen on social media today is that Rangers fans think this is a possible upgrade as well. So I think they're excited by the appointment. I think they're excited because he knows the club and he also plays a very good brand of football. And like I've said, he's also won 3 trophies as well, which is more than Gerrard won in his 3 years here. So yeah, I think this is that this appointment for me shows the progression the Rangers have made under Gerrard. Somebody that they can go and get a manager of Van Bronckhorst. Um, Van, Van Bronckhorst is a caliber of coach to come into Rangers because I mean, you just need to look at the last coaches they had. They had Pedro, Alan McCoist, Mark Warburton. So it just shows that they're steadily building a stature to who they can bring in.
Yep, absolutely. The one thing about this appointment is as we've touched upon, a really good appointment indeed. But what does this mean for Celtic in terms of their ability to think forward? I look at this by saying we touched upon it last week in the Celtic State of Mind. Not us too, just to clarify, but we did touch upon it by saying the Celtic board have to go back Ange Postecoglou. I think that message has just been reignited by this appointment an hour ago.
Yeah, but we spoke about it on last night's show about this, the Celtic board, and Dave made a thing about 15 million. I don't think it's going to be 15 million, Dave, but I think in terms of Celtic, I think they need to back the manager because simply it's the most important title race in terms of what you can bring in. I know last season was important in terms of the stature of Celtic winning 10 in a row, but this season Celtic can get 40 million quid, Dave. So it's so important that they're going back the manager, and I think he'll be looking at 3 or 4 areas go to go and do that.
Yeah, because I mean, this is a big season for both clubs. There's a lucrative possibility of Champions League football without the possibility or the potential repercussions about Champions League qualifying.
Yeah, I mean that. I'm not trying to dig, but that's simply why I think Van Bronckhorst will try and sell some players in January, simply for the fact that he want to bring in his own players and he also want to balance the books in case they don't win the league, because Rangers are already in £23 million in debt. I mean, I've listened to people like Barry Ferguson, um, Derek Johnson in the past saying that if Rangers win the league, what happens if they don't? Rangers are a club that's already in £23 million of debt. Only two. I'm not going to be disrespectful to Aberdeen or someone else here, Dave, but I think there's only two teams that can win the league. So Rangers are taking a big gamble, and that if they don't win the league, they'll put all their eggs in the one basket, and then they're already £23 million in debt, but they're going to be e- even more in debt if they keep players like Alfredo Morelos, Ryan Kent, Patterson. So I think they need to sell some players as well, which is very important for them.
I think this is a big season for Van Bronckhorst, even despite just getting a job 75 minutes ago. I think it's a big season for Van Bronckhorst.
Yeah, well, Dave, he's got a very big opportunity. I know people are saying that Rangers are in a bit of transition, but he's still got a very good squad, and he's still got the opportunity to get his club into a Premier Sports final as well, and also they've still got the Scottish Cup campaign, and they're still very much alive in the European football as well. So they've still got big things to go for this season, Dave. So I totally agree with you there.
Does Van Bronckhorst need to make changes? And if he does make changes, where do you think he'll strengthen?
I think he'll strengthen in the striker department. I think Alfredo Morelos. I think his time is up at Rangers. I just for him as well, because I know he spoke about. It seems like 5 years ago we spoke about Alfredo Morelos going to China or going to Holland, but it seems a bit quiet, and I don't know if Alfredo Morelos has been himself this season. And I think Rangers will just cut their losses and try and make way for a new striker, because Van Bronckhorst are wanting to put his own stamp on this team as well. Because as much as I've spoke about these players being very important for Rangers and very good, I think it's time for a fresh start as well, Dave.
I've got a smile on my face for a very good reason. On this day, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, Lewis Ferguson's winning goal against Rangers. The
Yeah,
start of the first season of Steven Gerrard's tenure at Rangers, and there was only one trophy in 9.
yeah, Dave, and I think that's a very important thing to bring up. I know from your point of view, it was a great day, right? But I think Rangers have got the stumbling block at the National Stadium. Same with their opponents on Sundays. So it's going to be the clash of the Hampden. Um, I don't know about that. The two, the I think both teams struggle there. So it's going to be very important that Rangers stamp their authority as the big team on Sunday. But what I would say on that day is I remember Rangers played that with it. Oh, 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 is it Sadiq from Roma?
Ah, yeah.
Omar Omar Sadiq, and people were saying, "Oh, he's going to be so good, so good," and then he only played like that game, and then everybody went, "He's absolutely terrible." So I think now he's getting linked to Manchester City. Is that right, Dave? I
Some
think
went to believe you.
yeah, it's crazy though, because I don't think he was very very good here. Um, but yeah, that was a great day for Lewis Ferguson, and Aberdeen as well, because like we spoke about in the show last night, Aberdeen have not done so well against Glasgow teams as well. So that was a very important victory.
Tom, you've made my Thursday, my friend. I'll just wait till I get it up for you. I can't believe this is David's last Thursday. I start a tennis ball protest, but the dog would go mental.
Uh, Dave, yeah, it's I'm, Dave. I'm sure you'll be on other shows, mate. So,
Aye,
yeah,
just to clarify, I'll be on every Monday and Wednesday, right? Monday is the guest, giving my disappointing views on football, joking, and I'll be on Wednesday as the host to the lovely Greg and the lovely Jenna Thompson. We've got, as I said at the top of the show, we've got you structure beginning next week, so we're all going to be up and running by Monday. So Monday will stay the same, but the rest of the week you'll see a completely different change. So you'll find out in due course, of course. Van Bronckhorst, he had he managed, sorry, a fairly similar formation tactics to the current Rangers setup, which I think is a good thing.
yeah, it's a massively good thing because I don't think it'll be a big change for the players as well, Dave.
Yeah,
Um, and I think that's important because if you look at past times when managers have went into Celtic and Rangers, they've wanted to change a lot of things. You look at Pedro when he went into Rangers, they changed a lot of things, and the players didn't really buy into it, did they? So I think it's important that as much as he tries to change things, I think the old saying, David, if something's not if something's not broken, don't fix it. So I think that's important with Rangers as well, Dave.
he worked under a director of football type structure, which is an interesting dynamic. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean he's see to me, Dave. I think it's very important that you have a director of football because we spoke about this in the show last night. But Ange Postecoglou is virtually doing the whole job himself at the moment, and I think that's important that Gio van Bronckhorst has got someone in there to help him because he's new to the job. He's new to what it means for Rangers, and he's also new to Scottish football in terms of. I'm not mean he's new to Scottish football, but he played in a totally different era of Scottish football, Dave. So he'll need to adapt somewhat as well.
I think this is the biggest job of Van Bronckhorst's media career so far because Feyenoord, there is expectation at that club, but they're not expected to go and win leagues season upon season. And they're not expected to win silverware season upon season compared to maybe Alliance and the PSV, with all due respect. The Chinese club, we all know about the money that's involved in China. Don't even get me started on who's the bigger club and who's the more dominant club because I've been in lookers all day, gents, and I've not had the time to go look and do some homework. So let's just put it down as lazy journalism from my part. But I look at this, Regan, by saying this is probably the biggest job of Van Bronckhorst's media career, managerial career so far.
Yeah, because he's going to be a very interested spectator, Dave, because he's um he's got that pressure on him that he probably didn't have at Feyenoord because as you know, there's some bigger teams in Holland as well.
Yeah, and I mean, the Holland, the standard of football in Holland is a very, very good standard indeed. But Rangers, it's the same as Celtic. You're expected to win games of football every week, and 3 games without a win is panic and disaster for one of the Glasgow two.
Yeah, I mean, see, in terms of Rangers, right? Even though people talk about it's very important that they play well, but see at clubs like Celtic and Rangers, it's not important that you play well. It's important that you win. Celtic played terrible against Livingston, but see if they'd have scored that penalty against Livingston last minute, everybody would have forgot about that. But that's what I mean. He's going to a club like Feyenoord who were punching above their weight, but he's now going to a club with all due respect in a small pond that are expected to beat teams like St Johnstone or Dundee or Aberdeen because this is what Rangers expect. Rangers want to be in the Champions League, and um, I don't think Feyenoord expect to be in Champions League, and this is what he needs to manage as the manager. But I'm sure he'll get people around him that he can trust and that will support him best because it's very, very important. I mean, as we've seen with Ange Postecoglou, he's not got the support staff around him. But I think this just shows how important he's done.
Yeah, five trophies in 4 years at Feyenoord. Very good start. Very good accolades indeed for Van Bronckhorst. The point I am making is that if this doesn't work for Van Bronckhorst at Rangers, we can see this going to it's a sink or swim appointment as far as I'm concerned. Because if this doesn't work out, people look at this and say he failed in Scottish football.
Yeah, Dave, I'm going to say something to you at the moment, right? We had a manager that joined uh, Kilmarnock 2 years ago. I think it was the assistant to Antonio Conte. Was it Angelo Alessio?
That's
Um,
correct. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so everybody thought he was this great coach. He'd won a lot of trophies with Antonio Conte, right? But the Scottish culture didn't suit him. And then you just need to look at someone like Pedro. Everyone said he'd done great things over in Qatar and stuff. But sometimes the foreign coaches, it just doesn't work over here. Simply for the fact that I think when you're playing in Scotland, there's this kind of um, looking down on people because if you look at Angelo Alessio, he won manager of the month and then he he was away after a few weeks because of fan power, player power. So I think it's important to bring that balance as well. That sometimes foreign coaches don't work here as well.
Yeah, can I just give you an example of Neil Lennon? I know this might sound pretty stupid. Lennon, in his first spell at Celtic, was linked with the Everton job because he was doing so well at the time. Now, Lennon, you can argue that Celtic is a bigger club than Everton based on success, based on the fact that Celtic will win more trophies than Everton will, right? But also, the Everton job at that time in England was a big job, right? And arguably so. I mean, when you look at the managers that took over that club, such as Ancelotti and Benitez in particular, it just goes to show you that Everton is a pretty attractive proposition for any manager. And yet he was linked with the Everton job a good 8 years ago. In fact, it was after Moyes left Everton and took the Man United job. Right? That just goes to show you. And then it never quite materialised. When I left Celtic, went to Bolton, didn't click there. And I think it's been in a downward trend ever since. The last spell at Celtic was utter disastrous. And Lennon hasn't been linked with any big job in England ever since. The biggest job was it West Brom or Cardiff, if I'm not mistaken, which
No,
is well beyond his level.
for Neil Wynn, it was Bolton.
Was it both? Was
Yeah,
he linked with the Bolton job again?
no, he managed Bolton, Dave.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. He took the Bolton job, and then it's went in a downward trend ever since. When his stakes were very high a decade ago, also away from the original point, it goes to show you when things don't go well when you're a manager, it it potentially um, it could potentially collapse, and you're back to square one. Basically, is what I'm
Yeah,
trying to say. And Van Bronckhorst has to be wary and vigilant of that.
yeah. And David, I spoke about it on the show last Tuesday as well when I said that even though Gerrard is said to leave, I think what Rangers fans need to realise as well is that Steven Gerrard's stock is very, very high at the moment, right? But in a couple of months it could be very, very low. So I mean the good saying in football is strike when the iron's hot. And that's what Steven Gerrard's done. Because he could have stayed at Rangers and not won anything, and then his stock would have went down to, 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 totally, Dave, because um, Celtic and Rangers are two big clubs here, so I think it would have been very, very difficult for him to get a big Premier League job if he stayed here for another few months.
On Gerrard, he had his press conference today. I found it fair that he went and told the press about how much relationships had a part with him at Rangers, how much respect he has for Rangers Football Club. But I also felt it was a little bit too much by saying the words of "I'm not here to speak about Rangers Football Club." I understand why he doesn't want to speak about it, but Does he maybe need to get that in too early in his press conference? I mean, you don't want Rangers being dominated in a press conference of it being appointed as new manager at Aston Villa Football Club. Also, look at this by saying he did terrific things with Rangers, and the press have every right and every entitlement to ask him questions.
Yeah, and I think what it shows as well, David, that he also mentioned there that he's took Rangers as far as he can in Scottish football. He achieved 55, and I think that's where Rangers and Celtic fans need to realise that there's a glass ceiling in terms of he achieved what he said to do, and now he wanted to go. But Rangers fans would have hoped he would have stayed for Champions League football. But I think that just shows the level that Scottish football's at, that Steven Gerrard can get an offer from, no disrespect, a middle of the road team at the moment. Aston Villa have won the European Cup before, but at the moment they're sitting 16th, I think it is, Dave. So they're not sitting in
Yes,
the best. I mean, they're not sitting in the best place. So I think it just shows the level that Scottish football's at. That Brendan can go to a middle of the road Leicester, and Gerrard can go to a middle of the road Aston Villa.
yeah, absolutely. But then, what is success for Van Bronckhorst this season or 12 months down the line? I think it's Champions League football for me.
Both over both Rangers and Celtic will be hoping that they can secure that title, because for one team it's going to be absolute jubilation, and for the other it's going to be absolute despair, because this is so important, not just on the park but in the boardroom as well, Dave, because they'll be as much as Rangers. It's great for their fans to win 55 last year, but in terms of this year, I think this year's got a bit more importance in terms of straight into that Champions League for them.
Yeah, absolutely. As for Celtic, I touched on the question recently, but the January transfer market is massive for Ange Postecoglou now, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and especially that he's doing the scouting all by himself at the minute, because he'll be looking to get a few players in from Japan as well. So I think he'll probably have his targets. I think they'll probably sign that in Mazda, the winger or striker. So I think he'll be expecting the board to back him because of the success he's done, and obviously with the importance of winning that league title at the end of the season.
From a state of Scottish football point of view, I think it's important that we're not bringing in a manager at Rangers Football Club. It'll be the same with Ange Postecoglou at Celtic as well, may I add. I think it's important we're not bringing in a manager in Scottish football that's going to want to bring in continental players.
Um, I think you can. I think you can say that with both ends of the stick, because you've got Kyogo, but then you've got that Carlos Pena that Rangers signed from Mexico that would rather go to a nightclub or do whatever than play for Rangers. So I
Mhm.
think it works both ways, because I would say that Kyogo's the best player in Scottish football at the moment. So I
Because
think
I'll tell you what, I'll tell you exclusively why I'm telling you this, right? With the exclusion of Dick Advocat, who amassed 131 wins, 34 draws, and 30 defeats in his 195 games in charge at the club, with two league titles and two Scottish Cups and a League Cup. Ever since then, when Rangers went down the foreign route, it's not worked.
No, it hasn't worked, but they've got some great players that they've had over the years as well, like George Alberts. Um, I'm trying to think of more, but yeah, I think they've got obviously that foreign connection as well. They've got a lot of Dutch players as well, Dave, which they could try and buy. I'm sure G- Giovanni van Bronckhorst knows a few Dutch players that are on the cusp of doing well. They could bring to Rangers and maybe sell on for a few quid. So yeah, I think it's a good market that Rangers could join in.
So, I mean, Paul Le Guen, 2006, 31 games, 16 wins, 8 draws, 7 defeats, lasted 240 days in the job.
Yeah, touching on Paul McGuinn, I remember when I spoke to Graham Spears, the journalist. he told me a story about Paul, Paul, Paul Le Guin, and he said that he, he basically phoned Peter Lawwell and said to Peter, said that basically um, you don't have to worry that this guy won't do well in Scottish football,
Okay.
even though he was doing well over here, Uh, and uh, and Graham got that message from someone that was over in French football. So yeah,
Right.
I think it's a catch-22. I think hopefully from a Rangers fan's point of view, he can do very well. But I understand where you're coming from, that he could not adapt to Scottish football.
Because Pedro Casina, 227 days in the job, 26 games, 14 wins, 5 draws, 7 defeats.
Yeah, I mean, Dave, I just hope that Giovanni's not got his caravan rolling and the dogs barking. So it'll just be interesting to see what the press conferences are like.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Rangers need a win on Sunday to kickstart Giovanni's managerial career at Ibrox, most importantly, but also to get a bit of enjoyment and excitement back into the club.
Yeah, because as much as it's early on, I think it's important that they start off well, because that could be a that could be a big psychological boost, or it could go the other way where there could be frictions in the dressing room because the manager's left and some players are not happy with the coaching style of Giovanni. So it could be work two ways for them, Dave.
I look at this in reflection by saying a lot of Rangers fans were hurt last Thursday by Gerrard going to Aston Villa. See, 1 week on, it's. I'll give you a possible example. Just because it's my last Thursday in this show, we all love a comparison this Thursday show. Last Thursday was about having a steak pie for your lunch, and the steak pie wasn't cooked exactly right in the middle. Right, you could tell that nothing was going. You could tell something was wrong. Right, so you were disappointed with the level of steak pie. 1 week on, you go back to the same hotel for the same steak pie. The steak pie is immaculate. That's the way I look at it.
It depends how the state um it depends how people like their state pie. But yeah, I think Giovanni will be a very good appointment. I'm just going to say that right now. I think he will be. But I said this to you earlier. I think it depends who he brings in his backroom team.
Well, I mean, Roy Mackay would be a terrific appointment, and I'm not just saying that for his goal scoring instincts at Bayern Munich either.
Yeah, I mean it's going to. He'll obviously be very good for the strikers as well. But like I've said before, I think it's important that he's got very good people around him, because as we know, I've heard really good things at Celtic about Steve McManus. I've heard he's been very good for Ange Postecoglou. So I think that's very important, that you get people around you that you trust, and obviously Ange Postecoglou trusts Steve McManus. So I think it'll be interesting to see whether Giovanni can get people in that he wants.
There we go. Kilmarnock have had good steak pies for years and still get relegated.
Yeah, I mean, I do enjoy a Kelly pie. I've been there a few times and I've got a few Kelly pies, so I do agree with you there.
Now, the big thing for Van Bronckhorst is navigating this crucial cup tie at the weekend. But how does he navigate it?
Do Dave, do we know if he's going to be in the dressing room or and around it, or?
There's no LA conclusions about that yet. No.
Oh, okay, because I think that could make a big difference for them.
I also look at this by saying he needs to figure out how to use Nathan Patterson. There's a massive debate right now about Tavernier and Patterson. How does he figure it out, do you feel?
Dave, I've said on this show before, I think it's very important the Patterson gets game time because it could affect him for the Scotland prospects as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And what the three possible requirements in his early tenure at the job is make a fast start, sort out the leaky defence, and get a buy-in from the squad. Something that I don't think Gerrard got on all three accounts.
Yeah, and also I think he needs to maybe um, make, make Ibrox a fortress the way Steven Gerrard did, because I think that'll be very important for him going forward. Because we know what difference the home form can make as well, Dave.
That's the thing. Rangers looked very suspicious at times whenever they played the so-called smaller sides. But see, when it was the big European nights at Ibrox, boy, did Gerrard get the players and indeed the fans up for those games. And the Rangers fans were the 12th man on that night in question.
Yeah, I mean they've been fantastic in Europe. I spoke about on the show about they've beat so many good teams like Braga, Villarreal. So yeah, they've got some good European pedigree, and hopefully, from Giovanni van Bronckhorst, he'll be hoping that they can carry on that when they play Sparta Prague in 2 weeks' time.
Now, there are a few theories that seem contractually obliged to be included in an analysis of a new manager's early tenure. There's the much vaunted bounce. It is hoped the arrival will bring. But one much less universal phenomenon is the honeymoon period, a buffer from criticism. It simply does not extend to all clubs. Rangers is one of those clubs where the pressure is too intense, the expectations too unmalleable, and the big games too unrelenting for mitigating factors to be considered. He needs some big wins early doors in this tenure just to get on side with some of the Rangers fans.
Yeah, I mean, Dave, I know that Rangers fans are very in favour of this appointment, but what I would say as well to balance that is that if he gets a few bad results, then it could turn sour very quickly because they've still got to go to some very big places, including Timecast in a few weeks.
Now, as I said, he becomes the 17th man to take permanent charge of the club as it approaches its 150th year and will look to recreate the excitement of the Dick Advocaat era he was part of between 1998 and 2001 when he won 5 trophies as the Dutch Revolution pushed Rangers ahead of Celtic during that time. Before Martin O'Neill came in and the East End of Glasgow basically dominated Glasgow after that 2001 period.
Yeah, I mean, Martin O'Neill had a great time, but like I spoke there, Gio scored against Celtic before, so he'll be looking forward to his first Celtic Rangers game on the 2nd of January as well, Dave.
That's the thing. He plays it on great there. That 2nd of January Celtic v Rangers game is a massive game for both clubs already. And we're not even at Christmas yet.
Yeah, it's going to be a big game, especially because there's no fans there, and um, not no fans there, I mean no Rangers fans as well. So that'll be interesting for Gio to take in the atmosphere of the Celtic fans as well, because I think it's a very interesting battle when there's only 60,000 Celtic fans there as well, Dave.
Have you been in Go Radio?
Yes, I have been, so he probably knows it from there.
Yes, yep. So there you go. The man himself has indeed been in Go Radio. So have I. Great radio station, by the way. But unfortunately, the stumbling block is they're on from 5 till 7 every day of the week. So unfortunately, the time clash with us. So that's the most unfortunate thing because I've got a lot of time and a lot of respect for Mr. Ron McLean. So yeah, just fantastic Go Radio. The Go Radio have some terrific pundits on all the time. John Hartson gets his critics, but I'm a really big fan of John Hartson's Go Football Radio. Regan.
Yeah, I've met John before. He's a good guy, and yeah, he talks a lot of sense. I've spoke to John on Go Radio before as well.
Yep, absolutely. Now, the final conclusion to this is good appointment, but he needs to hit the ground running. Van Bronckhorst.
Yeah, he definitely does because it's a big job, and like I said, football fans can be very fickle, even though Rangers fans are very happy today. They could be very unhappy when it comes to 2 weeks' time when he plays a couple of games and the the scores don't go too well because football is a results driven business, Dave. So
Now,
he needs to start very well, or the Rangers fans will get on his back.
now, there's a lot of things about win percentages in the comment section. Feyenoord, 176 games, 107 wins, 26 draws, 43 defeats, with a win percentage of 60.80%. Obviously, a few honours included in there as well, as manager won the Eredivisie in 2016-17, the Cup 2 seasons in a row. Sorry, he won two cups. Sorry, between 2015-16, 2017-18, and the Johan Cruyff Shield. His record in China leaves a lot to be desired, though. 7 wins, 6 draws, 10 defeats. As much as you're happy with this appointment, do you think there's a happiness about this appointment just because they want somebody before Sunday, rather than just happy that Gio's came in the door?
Dave, I think you need to strike a balance because Rangers fans will just be happy to get someone through the door, and also Gio's got that Rangers background as well, so I think they'll be very happy with the appointment. But for me, I thought they would maybe go for someone like Derek, maybe a safe pair of hands. But obviously, Rangers have went in a totally different direction.
But here's the thing: there was a massive. I understand there's COVID times as well, of course. There was a massive crowd when Gerrard got appointed. Do you think it's going to have the same reception when Van Bronckhorst walks into the door either tomorrow or next week?
Um, Simply because he played for Rangers, yes, but I don't think he's as big a name as Gerrard. I know he was at Barcelona and at Arsenal, but I just think with English media they probably hyped up a little bit because if you look at Rangers, as much as Rangers and Celtic was great on Sky Sports, I think the English media loved it because Gerrard was up there as well, and I think someone like Frank Lampard would have definitely done that again, Dave.
Absolutely. He's a little bit happy to know we're finished with Giovanni Van Bronckhorst chat. So we're going to go to Celtic next. Big game on Saturday against St Johnstone for Celtic, Regan.
Yeah, Dave, it's a massive game because Postecoglou will be rubbing his hands thinking, I've got 2 games and I've won a trophy as Celtic manager. So, yeah, it's a big game for him. And I see St Johnson, I've got two players out as well, Dave. Could you give us a bit more information on that? Is that Glenn Middleton, I think it is?
Yeah, I kind of tried to touch on it last night. On Tuesday night at Tannadice, he pulled up an under 21s game for Scotland, so he is a massive doubt indeed for the weekend. But the 3 players that are also a massive doubt are Georgios Giacomakis, Carl Starfelt, and Tom Rogic. What do you think of that, Regan?
I think Tom Rogic is the biggest miss for Celtic because he's been outstanding under his fellow countryman Ange Postecoglou, but I expect Celtic to win the game. I know St Johnson have been the cup specialist and the most success the most successful club in Scotland behind Celtic now in the past decade. So yeah, I think for 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 Celtic, it's a big game in terms of Ange Postecoglou stamping his mark on Scottish football.
Absolutely. I've brought up this current comment because I do agree with you, Daniel. I mean, BT's coverage is better. I'd rather all the Scottish games went on there. I mean, Emma Dodd's tremendous. I understand she's got her Rangers affiliation, but she's a fantastic presenter. Chris Sutton, fantastic. Ali McCoist, tremendous. He's the second. He's the assistant behind Ian Crocker for Scotland games now. That needs to be a permanent contract. Alec McCoist is phenomenal. And yeah, I do agree with you, Daniel. BT should have the Scottish football nights because they give a much more bigger context on our beautiful game in Scotland.
Yeah, Dave, I totally agree with that as well. I'm not just saying that because I know of people in it, but they take great pride in Scottish football, which is something that I think lacks at Sky. I'm not having a dig at Sky, but I think the BT coverage was fantastic.
Yeah, and the thing is, I'm looking forward to this weekend's coverage for the game because it'll be in Premier Sports. You'll get Dodds, you'll get Rob McLean, you'll get Sutton, you'll probably get McCriss, and you'll probably get McCoist. A very good lineup there.
Yeah, it's the same as I think it's the same BT production that they put on Premier Sports. The only thing I don't like in Premier Sports is that Scottish football fans have to pay for Sky, BT, and Premier Sports, which I think is a bit too much. But yeah, it's great that Premier Sports have managed to get Emma Dodds, Chris Sutton, Rob McLean, Rory Hamilton. So yeah, definitely, I agree with that.
How big a miss is Tom Rogers going to be on Saturday to Celtic, do you feel?
I think it'll be a big miss because he's the creative spark. But I think Celtic have got enough to get the job done. Dave.
Mhm. It must be said that they're probably going to be back for the Bayer Leverkusen game next Thursday, but Saturday they'll probably just come too soon. But I think there's a strong enough lineup to suggest that Celtic will have enough quality to go and win the game. But also, obviously, they need to be wary of St Johnstone because St Johnstone have shown how they can go and win cups.
Yeah, and Dave, they also need to be aware of a goalkeeping a goalkeeping masterclass from Zander Clark because he can score goals as well. Dave, don't forget about
Absolutely. One thing we didn't touch upon last night, I'm going to go off the puck very briefly here. Uh, Celtic's principal shareholder, Dermot Desmond, is looking to hand more responsibility to his son Ross behind the scenes at the club. You won't know a lot about Ross, but what do you think about that?
that. I think it just shows that the lack of interest that Dermot Desmond has for the club. He'd rather play on a golf course than try and help Celtic. But what I would
Because I
say
mean,
on
when you
what
go,
I would what I would say on Dermot is that he has put a bit of money in, so and he was the part of the recruitment drive for the summer's window. So and Celtic have not done too bad either. So yeah, I suppose.
because I mean, yesterday Celtic held their AGM, which Desmond yet again failed to attend. This was hardly a major surprise, given that he has hardly been present at a single AGM for the last 15 years.
And do we know why he chooses not to attend, Dave?
There's no given reason publicly now.
Okay, because I find it strange that a major shareholder would not attend the general meeting with the fans. But yeah, I suppose if he would rather put his money in and not show face, then hopefully Celtic can benefit. But yeah, it's a strange one for me.
But then I look at this by saying, if Desmond's going to delegate duties to his son, it sounds to me that it's kind of Ross is under a bit of pressure with regards to giving Ross himself money to go and spend on transfers, which could be a pretty fragile situation if you ask me.
Yeah, especially that his son is probably new to the role as well. So I think it'll be very difficult for him.
Mhm. I think overall, from what I hear, Desmond's looking to hand more responsibilities over, and even though the wealth comes from him, I think the dissemination of that wealth in a Celtic context will come more from his son. But the $1 million question, if you're a Celtic fan, is what experience and what's Ross's football background? Nobody knows just now.
No, I think it's probably just a job for the boys. As in that he's not got no real experience, and it's a bit of a strange one if you're a Celtic supporter because you want to see the club progress and go forward. And I don't know if Ross Desmond is the answer to push Celtic forward, Dave.
I mean, it's got an Arsenal situation to it where Stan Kroenke's involved at Arsenal, but he hands over the reins to his son at Arsenal.
Yeah, well, it can definitely work, but I'm just meaning in terms of progressing the club forward.
Saturday's on the park. It's probably about getting the win for Bertie in the end. What a legend for Celtic Football Club.
Yeah, Dave, I was down at Celtic Park the other day. I paid my respects, and some of the videos you see on social media, you see the warmth and the gratitude that the Celtic support had for Bertie, and he had some great stories as well. So yeah, it was a sad loss, and I see that the Green Brigade and Celtic Football Club will be wearing number 10 on their shorts as well. So that's a great tribute for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, I look at this by saying Celtic after the AGM worries yesterday need to focus on getting a good performance in the park, but most importantly, getting that win for Bertie. I mean, all the AGM worries of yesterday needs to be forgotten about by Saturday evening.
Yeah, I mean, it's like people say the performances on the park are the most important, and obviously there was problem behind the board behind the board for the last 10 years, but because Celtic won 9 titles in a row, no one mentioned it until last season. That's just a simple fact because the performances on the park took the main priority, and even though that I was pretty vocal that they didn't sign John McGinn because I thought he was one of the best Scottish players out there. And obviously, people were saying, well, did this board know what they're doing because they've won 9 titles? But I think it just shows that not everything in the garden was rosy, Dave.
Yeah, absolutely. The final thing on Celtic is the loss in Middleton will be a key loss to St Johnstone, but Celtic probably need the result most importantly, but also the result. Sorry, a performance.
Yeah, because they'll have the majority of the backing at Hampden. And I think because the Hampden pitch is a big pitch as well, I think it'll suit Celtic style the way that Postecoglou is playing as well. So I expect Celtic to do very well, and they've got Kyogo Abada and Jota. So I think they'll be a great run free, and it's going to be very exciting for Celtic fans to watch. But I think from a St John's point of view, they'll be going in with no fear because they're a very very good side.
I want to make a point about St Johnstone here. If this was a Celtic Hearts or Celtic Hibs or Celtic Aberdeen, there would be a lot more attention on these certain clubs. The fact that St Johnstone, despite their success last season, I think a lot in the media have undermined St Johnstone here.
I know what you're saying, Dave, but I think it's been well publicised as well because if you look at stations like Talk Sport, they they only say, well, it's only two teams can win trophies up there. But I mean, they seem to never mention that St Johnstone won two trophies. So their argument that only two teams can win trophies up there is basically not true because if you look at Germany, Bayern Munich, you could say Bayern Munich only win trophies in Germany. You could say that PSG only win trophies in France, but it's not as simple as that football. So yeah, I
I mean,
totally get.
we've seen it last season in French football with Lille winning League all last season.
Yeah. And Dave, I think that's a very important point because Pochettino come in there as well, Dave.
Who was that? Sorry.
Pochettino was in there as well.
Oh,
A
sorry,
very
was
big,
yeah. Don't
a
worry,
very big manager.
I'm not trying to repeat last night where you're asking me about Peter Lawwell, and I'm like, sorry.
Yeah, I've not, Dave. I've still not forgotten about that.
Now, I'm hoping that's in the Scottish football comedy sketch show on Hogmanay. I really do hope it is because, as much as it was me trying to be half asleep, I think it was a very comical error indeed.
Yeah, no, it was very fun and definitely the people watching enjoyed it.
Absolutely. With regards to the weekend as well, sorry, Saturday, Johnston have a lot of good players. Their stumbling block is they do have an aging side, but they've got a fantastic side. They've shown it last season, shown it this season as well by getting some big results already.
Yeah, and what they've got as well, Dave, is they've got a fantastic manager and a fantastic goalkeeper. So I think they'll be a very tough nut for Celtic to crack, but I expect Celtic to do the job very well. I'm going to go for 3-1 to Celtic, Dave.
Absolutely, I'm going to go for 2-0 Celtic. I, 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 Middleton, I just can't see where goals are going to come in from in the St Johnstone side because, I mean, Chris Kane has been scoring goals, but he doesn't score enough goals for me. So, 2-0 Celtic. But last thing, we're going to end with John Souttar. There's been a lot of talk about Robbie Nielsen saying in his press conference today about basically wanting to give John Souttar a very good deal indeed when the new deal or new contract talks come up, which will be very shortly, I'm assuming, because he is indeed out of contract end season.
Yeah, I mean he's a very good player. I think Celtic or Rangers will be looking at him because he could be an absolute snip. I think he's worth 500 grand, is it, Dave? That he could
Yeah.
that they could buy him for. So I think if you're Celtic, you'll be. I think you'll be looking at that. Well, I think they should be looking at it. Surely someone at the club is looking at it because he's a very, very good player, Dave, and he would definitely add to that squad.
He's the future Stephen Presley, if you ask me. John Souttar. He's the future Stephen Presley.
Yeah, I mean, how far do you think he can go, Dave? Do you think he can go to the Premier League in England or?
I think he's shown it with performances this season. We've seen it in football. 4 or 5 good performances, or indeed a consistent season of good performances. Clubs start coming to games, start looking at players, bang, you're out the door. Ali McCann, great example. It's John's the last season.
Yeah, I mean, he was fantastic. He was actually a player that I thought Celtic or Rangers might win for because he was Scottish as well. Remember, Scotland, he chose Northern Ireland instead of Scotland as well, which was very disappointing because he was a very, very good talent for St Johnstone. And I think he could be a player that could do very well because what I've been hearing from Preston is he's done very well this season as well, Dave.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. When I look at John Souttar, I think he's the next Stephen Presley. He's either going to sign a good deal and go on a good run in terms of being at the club for a very long time. Potential Stephen Presley, just in terms of the way he operated at Hearts and the time length that he was before Presley went to Celtic. Or I look at this by saying, go to Rangers or indeed go to England and see if you can crack it in a very tough environment.
Yeah, I mean, I think he showed against a very good Denmark side, number 10 in the world. He showed that he's a very competent player. He showed that he can handle the occasion, and he's shown that he's got so much more to improve on as well. So I think it's exciting for Scottish football fans, but as well John Souttar as well, because as we know, Dave, he should he's had a very stop-start time as a player because he's been injured quite a lot as well, Davey.
Yeah, that's been the stumbling block, hasn't it?
Yeah, because um, I, I think there was a time at Dundee United where he got told he might never play again, so it just shows the character that he's got to come back from that as well, Dave.
Absolutely. Finally, we're going to end the last 2 minutes on Stephen Glass and Tam Courts. Both in their press conferences today spoke about their various counterparts in a similar vein. Glass spoke about the parallels between the two managers, and Courts said something very similar. And I asked the question, and I didn't know until I left St Andrews that the same question was asked to Glass today.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be a very interesting game. Tam Courts has been a breath of fresh air. I know that people were saying that it was a very strange appointment, but he's just shown that if you give a manager a chance, then he can definitely prove he's got the capabilities to take on Dundee United in the Scottish Premiership.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Aberdeen were on a predicament recently, but have responded with some wins over Hearts and Hibs. And it shows that despite going in a predicament, Glass is following a process at Aberdeen.
Yeah, he's following a process, Dave. But what I will say is that all that good work has been undone by the 2-0 defeat at home last time out for them, which was very disappointing because, like you said, they started to get on a roll, but then they've just went back to square one again for me, and they've got a big game for Stephen Glass on Saturday because if they go in and lose, Dave, the pressure will just get bigger and bigger for him.
I think it's a big game for both managers because, I mean, Dundee United dominated against Johnston but just got beat 1-0. but then they were okay against Hearts. But having spoken to Tam about this today, he was disappointed with stages of the play at Tynecastle. I think it's a big game for either manager this week at Tannadice.
Yeah, I mean, Dundee United have been a breath of fresh air under time quotes. They played very well at Tynecastle, actually. I watched that game and against St Johnstone. Xander Klopp was the man of the match. So I think
Yeah.
that's a game. I think that's a game you can write off and say, well, Xander Clark saved St Johnstone that game, so you can't really be too harsh on Tam Courts for that game, Dave.
Right, Regan, it's 7 o'clock. Your Coronation Street tonight. What we're watching?
I think I'm going to watch some PDC darts, Dave.
Oh, lovely. There we go. Let's get the darts on, ladies and gents. But for us, that's time. That's all we've got time for. We're away to watch the darts. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll catch you again. We don't know who's on it yet tomorrow, but indeed, we will catch you tomorrow. But for me and Regan, see you later.
See you